this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. I am so looking forward to this episode today. This is somebody who I have been following on Instagram. I love her content, a fellow group practice owner who has done a lot right and really seems to be someone who has built her business around her family. So somebody that I wanted to share with all of you. We're going to talk about group practice and managing our business along with our family life, but specifically automations that will help group practice owners be able to step away from their business and be fully present when they need to. So I'm going to have her say her full name, but we have Dr. Anahita with us.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Anahita Lake-Khosravi. I'm a group practice owner in Denver, Colorado. I also am a mom to 3, and I have my little guy on me right now. So had him 2 months ago and just took 2 months maternity leave, fully out of the business. I only ran payroll. Everything else was pretty automated, which was really, really wonderful. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be here and just to chat about, the whole process of running a business with a family and making it actually work so that you can manage both.
So start us off with a timeline. When did you start your practice? When did you expand your practice? And what does it look like today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started as a school psychologist. I was working in schools for a while and then just realized I had my daughter 4 years ago, and I realized I can't manage the schedule of being in a school. I need something more flexible. Also need more income. Working in schools does not pay well. So I started working towards my licensure as a psychologist. And then in July of 2022, I opened Empowered Living Collective. It started with just myself and one of my friends. We co-founded together, but we were kind of just operating on our own. We were each doing seeing our own caseload. And then I had my first son in October of 2022. So I took a couple months off and then came back again in January. And again, my partner and I were just kind of doing our own thing. We were talking about maybe group practice, but we weren't really sure. And we were just kind of seeing our own caseload. And then in March, I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to go to a group. I want to offer, school experience for me was really hard in a lot of ways, but especially just the compassionate side. People were not compassionate towards anyone. They didn't really care about your work-life balance. They didn't care about you as a person. It was just all, focus on students, which obviously is needed, but there's a balance there. Right. And so I was I want to be able to offer a positive work experience for people, and especially for people in the helping field. So in May was when we, in 2023, was when we hired our first therapist. And then by September, we were a group of 10. So we went really, really quickly. A lot of it was I was just so excited. I was let's do this. Let's just go for it. And so May we hired our first. September, we were a group of 10. And then we've slowly continued hiring since then. And so at this point, we are now a group of 13. And we have one admin as well. It kind of escalated quickly, and then I was you know what, I need to slow down a little bit, and I'm really, really happy with where we're at this point. So
That is incredible. That amount of growth in such a short amount of time,
Thank you.
almost unparalleled. Are you primarily all in person? Is it a mix or strictly virtual?
Yeah, so we are mostly in person. I have one therapist who does fully remote, but everyone else is, I would say, actually like probably 80% in person. Especially my niche is really kid focused. I started working with kids and teens, and you can do some virtual therapy there, and especially with teens, a little bit more, right? But like as you with younger kids, you need that in-person feel. You need those like toys and manipulatives. So it just started as that, and then just with like the hiring process, we brought on more people who did a lot of work with kids, and so it's like we need this in-person office space. So most of the people are primarily in person, which I love, because then you get that like you get the camaraderie, you get the team aspect, and it's not as isolating, which private practice can really be. So
It absolutely can, which was one of my primary reasons to grow my practice as well. So I'm thinking from the perspective of those listening. One of the first questions that popped into my head, and I'm sure theirs as well, what do you attribute to such rapid growth? Clearly, you were very enthusiastic, which I'm
yes.
sure got conveyed. But
Yes.
what helped you to hire so many clinicians so quickly?
I think that we really focused on like what is the vibe of our practice? Like how do we want to come across to the community, not just for clients, but also for, for attracting therapists to work for us. And so I think that we've done a really good job of really putting who our true selves, like at our core, who we are out there to the world. And so we, I always struggle with like how to present it, because I'm not the most like super ultra professional person. I don't show up in like a suit and tie, and I'm not like all I don't know. I like to hang out with people. I like to like be my real self, and like I'm not here to like micromanage people. I'm not here to tell you what's right and what's wrong. I'm here to like have conversations and approach everything from like a positive place. And so I think that because we focus so much on like really making sure that came through, that you're not entering a group practice where somebody is going to be like down your throat all the time, and who comes off in this like unrelatable, like can't really actually talk to them way. I think we were able to like find some really great therapists to join. We also started with our first hire was a pre-licensed therapist, and then over the summer we hired some interns, and so it was easier obviously to like find those people because they needed placements. But I think also we were able to be picky with it because of how we really portrayed ourselves to the community.
Yeah, that helps to understand and put in context. So for you being able to take those 2 months away and
Yeah.
feel really positively about it and only having to do payroll, part
Yeah.
of what I'm thinking before we get into the automation is how important it is to have systems and processes. And I'm thinking about my own experience and it taking me about 3 solid years of having a group practice until I felt like I could really be in that CEO role and more
Yeah.
of the working on the business as opposed to just in it and what it took to get
Mm-hmm.
there. What do you attribute to that ability to really take that step back? What were you
Yeah.
doing on the front end to help you get there?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is, and I think every group practice owner kind of has this experience, right? But like you start as the person doing all the things. So like, I started responding to all the referrals that came in. I started with doing all the insurance pieces. Like I started doing all those things. So I knew how they all ran. I knew what the problem spots were. I knew how to troubleshoot it all. And so like when we brought our admin in, or when, some of those roles shifted to like therapists doing certain pieces, it was like, okay, I've done all these things. So I can really tell you what you need to do and how to troubleshoot. And so when we talk about automations, when we talk about like systems in place, I was able to create those systems so that I took myself out of it, right? So I wasn't the person, if you have a question about something, here, I made sure everybody knew, here are all the places you go and look for the answer to that question. I am your last resort. And it's not from a place of like, again, it's not an unapproachable place. It's just a like, I want to preserve my time, right? And I also want to empower my therapist to know, like, how am I supposed to navigate these pieces if I'm not just it's not a given right off the bat. So it was really about knowing that I had done it, and then finding places and writing it down and doing like recording videos to walk people through it, and it just having those like at their like access anytime, so that I didn't have to be the one to answer all those questions.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And you said it, the word is empowering. And so
Yeah.
we do like with our children, like with our teams, it's similar where we want to provide them with what they need to be successful, but also those places to go, where to find the answers. Because even if we are the most accessible, there are always going to be times when we can't be immediately responsive. And I feel that most team members would appreciate that approach when you find that balance between being available, but also providing the framework. That's really helpful. So is there particular platforms that you would recommend? So you were saying you record videos, they have a place where they can all go. Where do you store everything?
Yeah, so I use Loom for video recording, and they have a free version. I've never paid for it. So, the free version, I think you record like 25 videos. And so I have just recorded everything, and it's all housed in Loom. And then I use G Suite for everything that we manage with like therapists and everything. And it's a lot of work on the front end, right? Like you have to get all these things in place to like set it up for your success and to be able to step away. So there's a lot of, I would say I'm a very organized person, which I think you kind of have to be in this world too. And so there's a lot of like folders and spreadsheets in Google Drive that therapists have access to. So like I have a spreadsheet that's called Therapist to Do, and it literally walks therapists through literally from like the time you're hired and you start getting clients until you discharge a client. It walks you through literally everything that you need. And it's broken up into different categories. And then, so it has like the actual action item. And then it also has like, if there's an additional document that you need, it's linked to that. If the video, you need that, it's linked to that. So I created that. And I kind of have different ones, like for therapists, I have one for admin. And then from there, anytime a therapist would ask me a question that wasn't already answered in a video or a document or something, I took that, I would obviously answer that question for them. And then I took that as like, here's my information. Here's like, I need to go create something so that if anybody else has that question, I can just point them in that direction. And I would always make sure it's linked. Like my biggest tip to people is it's easy if you are kind of going in that world to have so many different documents, so many different spreadsheets, all these things, but have one as your primary and then link everything else within that one so that like everybody knows if I have a question, my go-to is to go to this one document and I can most likely find it there. That will then link me to the other documents that I need. So that's really been the best strategy, I think, is really having all of those things in place and having them housed in one location for everyone to access.
Yeah, great tips. Very helpful. Can you give an estimate of how long it took you? So I'm sure that this is always in flux. You're adding things, you're modifying, but that actual kind of sit down, let's get the bulk of this ready.
Yeah.
How long would you say?
That's a really good question. I think I would say like maybe a couple hours, honestly. I don't think it was like too time intensive. And again, I think what's really to our benefit as group practice owners is like, we're not just some random business person starting a business and not knowing like all the different operations, right? Like group practice owners, typically, I would say like 99% are therapists themselves. And so they probably started in solo practice. So they probably like started doing all these things themselves. So it's not like you have to just like pull from your ass and be like, what am I doing? Like, what is this thing that I'm creating? Right. It's like, okay, like I did these things. Here's what I need to like tell other people to do. And so I really don't think it is that time intensive. I think like to start, if you start from scratch, it's probably a couple hours to like create the spreadsheet and like really get all the different pieces and create the videos and all that. And then from there, it's really just like you add things as needed. And so it no longer is time intensive. It's just like, oh, somebody had a question about billing. Let me go record a Loom really fast. It took me 15 minutes. I just link it and then send it to them and let them know. So it's really it's not terrible. As long as you're willing to put those few hours in up front for each of the pieces, it's manageable.
What a time saver in the long haul. We have to keep our eyes on the prize. And I know
Exactly.
just hearing you answer that last question, I felt the weight lift off of my shoulders, hearing that it was so tangible and that it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be this huge labor intensive process. It really is about just doing it and having it good
Yeah.
enough to roll out to your team and then
Yeah.
continually adding and modifying. So
Yeah.
super helpful.
Exactly.
I'm also
Yeah.
curious what your day to day is looking like.
hmm
So are you still seeing clients?
Yeah. So, well, currently no, because I'm on maternity leave, but prior I was. And
Mhm.
actually, that's something that has been just the best part of growing and expanding to a group practice is that, when I started in solo practice, I was seeing like 22 to 24 clients a week, which for a lot of people is like a normal caseload, and that's fine. But like with my family, and especially working with like the demographic that I do, working with kids, there's a lot of evenings. And I, at that point, was somebody who was like, I don't want to turn anyone away. I don't want to say no. And so from what I like wanted to do of seeing clients just 2 evenings a week became 4 evenings a week. And I was like really sacrificing my time with my family. My husband works in schools. And so it was like, he would get home and I was gone and we just really didn't have any time together. And so I went from seeing around 22 to 24 clients a week, working 4 evenings a week, to maybe 6 a
Mhm.
week, and really only one evening now. And so it's been such a massive change. And I like doing a lot of the business stuff. So, it's not like I have all this free time that opened up. It's like I still am doing a lot of those pieces, but it's really allowed me to focus on that group practice, like the growth and the goals that I have for it,
Mhm.
instead of like squeezing it in here and there. So yeah, I went, from a really crazy schedule, and now it feels a lot more like manageable, and just allowing me to really be present in the practice
Mhm.
more, which was a huge goal for me. So
Yeah, that's so good to
yeah.
hear. And I think the other piece too is those listening could be at various stages in their practice, but I think what you're offering is a roadmap and a light at the end of the tunnel that if you do have interest in the business side of things, you want to grow your practice, it's all doable. I think a lot of it sounds like, is mindset
Yeah.
and really prioritizing and kind of keeping that focus on what that is going to provide for you ultimately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm curious if there was anything that really helped you to grow successfully, or even in that stage when you were starting your own practice. Did you
Yeah.
do a lot of that on your own and kind of learning through trial and error, or did you utilize supports at any stage?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Supports are massive. I think like, you have to get people on in your corner. You have to get people like on your team essentially. And so when I like to start the actual practice, to really, create the business, all of that, I had a friend who had done it
Mhm.
previously, and I was like really curious, like, oh, you're in private practice, like, how's that going? Like, how have you been able to figure it all out? And she was loving it, and she was like, I would be happy to support you and like help you. And so she had actually, for other friends of hers who were interested, she had created this list of like, here's everything that you need to do. And it was specific to Colorado too, but it really walked like, it just listed out like, you need to create your LLC, you need to figure out what kind of, are you an S corporation, are you a sole proprietor, like all of these different pieces, figuring out your EHR platform, how are you going to market, here are different directories you could be on. It really just like listed all those pieces out. I'm also like a very ambitious, like go-getter type person. And so things that like, if it was just like a listed item, but it didn't really give much information, I was like, okay, like I'm just going to Google this, I'm going to figure it out. And so it was pretty simple to start that piece. It took time to like get all the pieces right in place, but it was pretty simple with having her kind of guidance. Going to a group practice, I actually, for a few months, kind of vacillated between, can I do this all on my own? Can I figure this all out myself? Or do I need support? Or do I need to like find somebody who's done it successfully, and kind of get their help? And for a while, I was like, I can figure this out. Like, what haven't I figured out in the past? I can absolutely do it. And then it kind of came to a point of like, no, hold on. Like, you're hiring people, they're working in your business. You don't know anything about like the tax side of this piece. You don't know anything about like the legal processes of running a business where you have people working under you. And so I decided to work with a coach. And so I joined a coaching program, and I think like I attribute a lot of my like quick success to having been in that coaching program. Because it wasn't a trial and error. It was a, hey, here's what worked for me. You take this, go do it. And I'm not going to say every single piece that she like handed over was perfect and exactly what I wanted it to be for my practice. But she had, she was able to help point in the direction of like, if you have this question, here's where to look and here's where to go for those pieces. So I think, to anybody out there who is like considering it, and who's sitting there saying like, oh, I can absolutely figure this out on my own. Like, yes, you can, but do you want to spend all that time? Do you want to spend money that you're probably going to end up wasting because like things aren't going to go exactly the way you want without a guarantee of like it's going to work, right? So like, I think it's so much better to work with somebody who's done it before and done it successfully to get their input, their systems, their, policies, procedures, all of those pieces just like handed to you to go from.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as somebody who has shifted into the consulting realm myself and helped a lot of clinicians and now entrepreneurs more generally help start their businesses and expand successfully and even diversify, I have such an appreciation for everything that you just said. And it's important for people to hear that it is okay to access help and to have somebody with that pre-formulated roadmap. And it doesn't necessarily have to be every single step that you're going to take. The way that they do it is necessarily going to be the exact way that works for you. But I think having some of those big items taken care of for you, it enables you to put more energy in some of the other avenues. And I actually just recorded a reel and I made it funny, but there's a lot of heart and pain points of being a group owner. And in the last 2 years, there are things that I always knew were a potential. And luckily I put things in place that helped me to be prepared when the time came, but I wasn't expecting to have every single one of them happen in the last 3 years. A subpoena, a licensing board complaint, a disgruntled client that left a negative review, having to plan a performance improvement plan and having to eliminate not just one clinician. And so I think having gone through those experiences and now reflecting back, I'm clear what was in place that really helped us to get stronger and we're better as a practice because those things happened. But I think a lot of times for people, fear of those potentials can hold some people back. For other people, they move forward anyways, but maybe haven't always taken that level of consideration to put things in place, and having support and guidance and making sure you do certain things properly from the beginning really set you up for success. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like, everybody hears the saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that this is one of the like strongest examples of that, of like when you start a group practice, you're like, oh, it's going to be easy. I hire a therapist, they get clients, they see those clients, I get the like profit from that, like you think that, oh, it's simple, right? And then you get in it and like all of those things that you just listed are like, I mean, they happen. Like we've navigated a lot of those pieces as well. And it's just, you need support. You can't figure it out on your own. And even if you can, like, I don't think you necessarily should, because people have different insights, right? And like, I'm still working with a coach. It's a different coach than when I first started, but over the summer, I was like, I really want to continue this growth of my practice. And I was just starting to like hit these roadblocks that I was like, I've seen a lot of success and I could probably just like trial and error my way through it. But like, I found a coach who is somewhere, she's my goals, right? So like I've created a practice that is really successful so far, and we're like on track to cross the $1 million mark in the next like month or two, which is so exciting for us, right? And I still have goals for our practice. I still have growth markers. And so I'm still working with a coach because I know that I need that support in order to get to the next level. I think so often people think it's scary to invest the money in a coach or a consultant or anything like that. And it can be a lot for sure. My coaching program when I started was $7,000. As somebody who like wasn't like I was solo. I didn't have a lot of expendable income, like I was just like getting my practice running. That felt terrifying to me. It took me months to commit to it. And if I could go back, I would do it 10 times over. Like I would not change that for anything because it got me where I needed to go. And so I think for anybody listening who is considering that and is like really scared about whatever number a coach or consultant gives you up front, sure, if it's like $50,000, okay, well, maybe not. But if it's like somewhere that feels a little bit scary, that's also only going to push you more, right? Mm-hmm. Like you want to get that investment back. And I think that if you find the right person that you really align with their values, there's no question you're going to get that. If you put in the work, you're going to get that investment back. And so I think that people are scared to invest. People are scared to like work with somebody else. But I would, the therapist in me is like, where's that fear coming from? Are you scared of the success that is around the corner for you? Yes. Or the failure, either one. Or both.
Of course. So, such important things for all of us to be considering, but such a wonderful vote of confidence in your living proof of how, obviously it is fundamentally you, right? It's your drive, it's you putting things into action, it's you kind of betting on yourself, but then also being open to that guidance and finding individuals who were in a place that you ultimately wanted to be and taking action and those steps. And here you are.
Exactly.
Okay, so the automation piece. So share some of what you had shared in that post that led me to reach out to you that really helped you to have peace of mind while you're away from work and you really want to be present for your family, that you would recommend those listening that are either considering expanding their team or maybe already have a team and maybe are hesitant to take time away, or when they do, they find that they're still consumed by being in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think it comes down to like two separate pieces. One is like the people that you have in place, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have an admin or if you're having somebody kind of step in your place, if you're on vacation or maternity leave or something like that, it's really coming down to like, who are those people who come in and kind of take over those roles and responsibilities? And then also like thinking about all the systems that really need to be automated. And so in that, the live that I did, I really talked about thinking about the client journey from like referral through to discharge. What are all the pieces that need to happen? Mm-hmm. Who's in charge of each of those pieces, right? So most of them are the therapist, but like the referral, the first, like the front end of it, for us is our admin. She's fielding all of those referrals that come in. And so it's really thinking about, here are all the different pieces that happen. I need somebody, like, what are my responsibilities within that client journey? And how can I shift those to other people? Or how can I shift them not even to a person? How can I automate it, right? So like we use JNAP for our EHR software and clients can self-schedule. We have it where they can only schedule their consultation themselves, but if you wanted to, you can have people schedule appointments directly with them as well. And so that, again, takes our admin out of it. And so I think it's just really important, the client journey, the billing, the payments, if you're insurance-based, obviously that has like a lot of other components that come along with it that you need to figure out the automation for. And so my biggest recommendation is go through every single piece of a client journey specifically and think about who needs to be in charge of each of those pieces. And I would really do these things even if you're not going on vacation, even if you're not like taking a maternity leave or something, right? Like you want to have that, you want to remove yourself as much as possible regardless. And then it's really empowering your people. So my admin, like she is the best admin I could have ever asked for. And she takes so much ownership, so much pride in our practice, which just, it comes across with clients. We've had clients who reach out and say like, I reached out to other practices, but I'm going with you guys because your admin was just so warm and welcoming. I'm like, okay, great. Like love that for us, And so I feel like I've really been able to empower her to feel like she can figure these pieces out on her own. And she doesn't need me there to be able to go into every single piece that she has to navigate. And then my biggest, like, really tangible tip for people, I created before I went on leave a spreadsheet of who to go to. So I thought I listed out every single thing that I could imagine that therapists needed help with, that my admin needed help with. And I have a list of like, you go to this person, you go to our biller, you go to our accountant, or for the therapist, like You go to your supervisor, you go to our admin. And then I sent it to everybody and I said, look through this. If there's things that you don't see on this list, add it. And then I can go in and I can tell you who to go to for those things. And so that's my biggest, most tangible tip is just have something where people can look to see who am I supposed to go to for this thing. But I think, just figuring out how you can remove yourself and practicing, right? So if you know that you have a maternity leave coming up, or if you have a big trip coming up, set aside before you get there, a couple of months before, tell your admin, tell your staff, hey, I'm going to be out for this week, and see what happens, right? See if they're able to do everything. And tell them, write down every single thing that comes up that you didn't have an answer for. And then when I'm back, we'll figure out how to navigate those things. And you can kind of trial it. So it's not the scary, I'm gone for 3 months and I hope that they're okay. So yeah, I think those are my biggest tips for the automation piece.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And for those of us listening, we all have our own reasons for why we decide to start our business, or why we may decide to expand our team, or why we might want to diversify. And I think what you are shedding light on is we have that responsibility to put certain things in place that are ultimately going to set us up for success, but also our team up for success. And so to be able to create this life that we ultimately have worked really hard and made a lot of sacrifices to get to, that you allow yourself that peace of mind by taking that action proactively. And it's making me wonder, so are you in the consulting space currently?
Yes, I am. So about a year ago, I was I've had a lot of people who have reached out to me asking, how did you do this? How did you get to this place? And I was just I really love helping people reach these kinds of goals. And especially, as therapists, you see people talking about this all the time. We're taught to not want to make a good income. We're taught that means for some reason that means that you don't care as much. And we also know the and of all of these things is so important. So you can want to make a good income, you can want to make more money than you could even dream of, and you can still care about people, and you can still want to offer really positive experiences for clients and therapists. And so I had a lot of people reaching out, and I was maybe this is something I should do. I really do want to help people get to these goals. So I started, just doing some individual coaching here and there. And then as it kind of continued to grow, I was I'm going to just start a program very similar to the one that I embarked on as well. And so I have a whole course that really walks you through start to finish, all the pieces that you need to hire your first therapist. It's really geared towards people who are completely in solo practice, wanting to hire that first couple therapists. So I have a course that, people can go through on their own. And then I also do weekly coaching calls with a group that we really dive in. I keep it small on purpose. A lot of the coaching programs I've been in are massive, and it's you're just kind of a fly on the wall wondering should I ask my question? Should I not?
Right.
But this is really small so that everybody gets a chance every single week for us to dive in to what's going on for them, to really get them to those, to reaching those goals and to hiring therapists and getting filling caseloads and knowing how to market. And it's different, right? When you're in group practice, a lot of these pieces, the foundation is the same, but the actual ways that you're doing it, the ways that you're marketing, the things that you're saying about your practice, they're different because it's a group practice now and you're not selling yourself anymore. You're selling all these other people. So I love working with people who are at that stage wanting to grow to a group practice.
Good. I'm glad. Well, I will make sure to include all of your links to make it easy for people. Highly recommend that they follow you on Instagram because the content is wonderful. So in summation, is there anything that we did not cover today, or a final thought that you would like to leave the listeners with about something from your journey that can help them on theirs?
Yeah, I think this is something that you hear people say a lot, but it's just really recently been so powerful for me, is the thought of do it scared, do it anyway. It's never going to feel easy. It's never going to feel like the right time. You're never going to have every single piece totally laid out in the exact way that you want it. But if you're if you know that this is a goal of yours, there's no better time to start than right now. And so I think just just knowing that like you have support, you have a lot of people in your corner, and you have a lot of examples of people who have done it before. So take advantage of that, and then know that like it's possible. I think like if people are in the Facebook spaces right now and all the Facebook groups, there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of like, I'm not filling my caseload. Like people are going to AI therapists, like all those pieces. And I would tell you to tune that out, because there are so many of us who are building something that no, like we're not losing clients to AI. We're filling therapist caseloads. Like there are ways of doing it. And so don't think that your goals, that your, what you want for yourself, for your practice, for your life, don't think it's not possible. Like it absolutely is. And you have to look, you're going to see what you want to see. So if you want to see the negativity, you're going to see that. But if you want to see like the positive pieces and the people who have been really successful, they're everywhere. You can also find that. So
agreed. Very well said. Thank you so much for that, for your time today, and for everything that you shared. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure to get to chat about all these pieces.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.